after bringing my daughter home. I think it was like the second day. I just started crying because I was sad for the life that I felt like I lost.
Let's start this thing, Paul. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Ask the Duo podcast, a podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this week on building better relationships, it's all about building better relationships, transitioning into new parenthood. But I think that's also paired well with mindset as well, because it's about how you think about transitioning into this new phase of life. So we want to answer some of these questions and go through this topic that we haven't really discussed before.
That's right. Parenthood is a huge, huge topic. And we're noticing that a lot of our friends and peers are bringing up this topic.
Yeah, it's actually a highly requested one as well, actually. A lot of people have, a lot of our listeners has asked us if we're going to do this topic, and we actually have someone special that we've been in conversations with on socials, and we thought she would be the best person to help answer our listeners' questions as well. And she comes from Melbourne. Her name is Jackie. So welcome.
Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
No, thank you for joining. Did you want to just give our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do as well?
Yeah. So I'm a counsellor. I've been practicing for about 10 years. I also have a background in early childhood education. My areas of interest are developmental and intergenerational trauma, perinatal mental health, and parenting. I work with individuals and couples in therapy, and I also run transition to parenthood workshops to empower couples to prepare for and anticipate for the challenges of becoming parents. And equip them with the knowledge and the tools to strengthen their communication and their bond with one another. And I went into private practice just earlier this year after working in an organisation for about 7 years. So still like lots of things that I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, I'm sure you also still have a lot of skills under your belt too from all those experiences. Yeah, that's a lot of things. Let's start off with just talking about before we get into parenthood, which is preparing for parenthood. So a big question that a lot of our listeners have asked is, what is the most important thing in discussing either with your partner or even just what to look for when you're considering of having a child or when you're actually going through that pregnancy phase?
That's a really good question. Expectations and responsibilities is a really important discussion to have. And getting really clear on each other's expectations and being really honest with yourselves and with each other, talking about division of chores, views on baby sleeping arrangements, when the working partner will return to work, if there's going to be a stay-at-home parent for a significant period of time, how long might they be looking to stay at home for, and when they do return to work or if they return to work, what about childcare arrangements as well? Will the in-laws or other family members be helping, or will you be looking into childcare centres? And just discussing big decisions that you might make as well. Like, for example, if what's important to you is, moving to maybe a more affluent area where there are a lot of good schools, then talking about how much financial strain this might cause on your relationship. Will both parents need to go back to work? When will that need to happen? Will the parent need to take on a job promotion or increase their work hours? Because all of these things are going to potentially cause more stress, cause distraction as well, and potentially time away from the baby or from each other. So it's really good to be clear on those things.
There's so much to consider.
Yes, heaps of things to consider. But can you really over-prepare for parenting?
Yeah, because there's so many parents, or even I have a few friends who, when they're going through their pregnancy phase, they just research and just read up and listen to books and just ask all these questions. Like, can you over prepare? Because everyone is different too, and every experience is so different.
Yeah, that sounds like me. I was researching every aspect of parenthood. You can certainly be over prepared. And if you're overthinking and over researching about every aspect of parenthood, you might develop an idealized view of your child and how you want to be as a parent, or how you want your partner to be as a parent, which can lead to excessive worry and stress, and then can lead to anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, I used to over research everything, like from what bassinet or pram to buy, how to introduce solid foods, the effects of screen time, how much screen time. I was really inundated with information and messaging about the right ways to do things. Yeah.
Just from your experience and also just your expertise, how would you explain to people to find a better balance in preparing?
It's okay to be doing research and to read parenting books, but I think finding a balance means that if you're recognizing that it becomes like really excessive worry or almost like obsessing, then it's mindful to think about the impact that that's having on you, and having on your partner as well. And maybe just reflecting on the things that you're focusing on in terms of preparing for parenthood, because you can definitely also prepare yourselves for parenthood. And it's important to do that. So I think it's looking at where you're investing your energy.
Like maybe even just finding your top 3 main focuses and focus on that, and everything else is kind of take it with a grain of salt and just learn as you go.
Yeah, I think definitely there are some things that you can prepare for, but also to have the mindset that you're still learning and that maybe the ideals that you had for parenting might not play out that way. And just to know that like you are going to make mistakes or things might not go to plan. And I think for parents as well who like have that perfectionistic trait can really struggle with that when things don't go the way that they want them to. They often internalize that into they're failing or that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, like don't have too high of an expectation of yourself while you're still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. People always say these things where nothing you read can prepare you or help prepare for parenthood. So is that more just, are we not looking in the right places, or what? Is there just so much information out there?
I've heard that saying a lot of times as well, and like that's not true. Like it's kind of, I think of it as a load of bull, because like yes, you can't prepare for everything, but you can definitely prepare yourselves. And I think a lot of parents often don't share how hard parenting is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of couples overlook the preparation needed for the changes that come with parenthood. So they can't really look beyond the birth. Like if a couple are expecting, they will often say like, we can't really think about what happens after that. Like we're just focused on the pregnancy or getting through the birth, because a birth is such a monumental event in itself. You know, you could be going to a transition to parenthood course, not necessarily my course, but there are other ones that you can enroll in. You can be reading parenting books as well to better understand yourself and how like your family of origin stuff might come up in your parenting. So you can prepare.
Yeah, no, I think that's some really good points that you point there, where everyone's just reading so much and preparing just for that birth period, and then once the baby's here, and now you're just scrambling to like figure out all the things that happen after the baby comes. And like I'm just thinking, is it because you're just too busy scrambling that people don't have a chance to even talk about that period after the baby's here, and that's why not many people hear about it? That's just like I'm just thinking, could that also be a case?
Yeah, I think we definitely don't talk about it enough or prepare other parents enough for what's to come. I think we don't want to scare other parents as well. I don't know if you guys find this, but usually if someone's had children, they might be more mindful of how they talk about the birth experience with people that haven't had kids, because they don't want to scare them into having kids or scare them for the birthing experience. So I think we sort of tread gently with that.
Yeah, I've definitely heard people where they're like, "Oh, this happened," and blah blah blah, and then they're like, "Oh, but don't worry, like if I can do it, you can do it," or like it's not as scary as it sounds. So they're trying to like they're sharing the experience, but then they're trying to like level it out and be like, "Oh, don't worry, like it's all good," you know.
I've done that as well. Like I've said, when someone's asked me about the birthing experience, like someone that hasn't had kids, I'll share a bit, but I'll say it's okay. Like, it's such a short period of time, like maybe 24 hours or 48 hours. Like, it goes so quick. And I'll say, and it's such a distant memory now.
For sure. So while we're talking into that birthing period and like just now becoming like a parent or just transitioning to that parenthood stage, what are the most common pressures that you feel that most parents would share or ask you about?
I think the relationship between the couple changing, like the impact of having a baby on the relationship. And I think like sometimes people do talk openly about it, but probably not in depth. And what it looks like is more like venting about their partner
Yeah.
rather than saying like, hey, we're really struggling with this since we've had our baby.
What are the main things that they would bring up? Is it like just maybe one side feels like they're doing a lot more work and the other side is more chillax? Like, what are the main things that they would talk about?
I think what's really common for mums or the stay-at-home parent is that they feel like they're carrying a lot of responsibility and the mental load, and that they feel like their partners are not stepping up or not contributing enough. I mean, these days, dads are a lot more involved now and they want to be, but I think mums carry the mental load and that's overwhelming. They do all the planning, the organisation, and the thinking for the family. So, for example, recently I was looking into gymnastic class for my daughter. And so I was going on Google, looking up schools that were close to us, looking at their timetable, trying to cross check it with our schedules to see what time would work, calling up and making an inquiry, booking a trial class. And my partner's happy to help out and take my daughter to gymnastics. But the process in just enrolling her is a process. And mums are doing a lot of that a lot of the time. And it just adds to this constant to-do list in our heads.
Yeah.
And then that impacts the relationship because the primary caregiver experiences that they start to feel resentful of their partner because their partner doesn't seem to be doing as much.
So what would be the advice for that? Because obviously it's such a difficult period because everyone's sleep deprived and tired and just trying to make things work and learning at the same time. And then because I can just imagine if you're trying to chase that to-do list, you don't really have time to be like, hey, trying to get someone else and delegate. You're just like, I just want to get it done. So what's a way to get that balance back and help the other person understand that I need some more help here? Or
Yeah, I think firstly it comes down to open communication and letting your partner know how you're feeling and letting them know what you need, but being able to just check in with yourself as well and ask yourself how you're feeling, especially if you're just a bit like a hamster on a wheel. You might not really be checking in with yourself. And I think communicating how you're feeling followed by making a request for what you need as well is really important. Like if you're just talking about how you're feeling or you're sounding like you're complaining or just venting, your partner might not be aware that there's something that you need. Like for example, the other day I opened up my Google Calendar and then I saw like 3 birthdays and a gender reveal party all in the same span of 2 months or something like that. And I just got really overwhelmed. Like I was already feeling overwhelmed. And then I saw that and I was thinking, oh, the presents I have to buy. And like I like buying thoughtful gifts as well. I'm not one to just go to the shops and grab whatever off the shelf.
Yeah.
Oh, all these presents I'm going to have to buy. And I felt overwhelmed. And then later in the day, I told my partner how I was feeling. And I was like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed by this and that. And he was like, okay, why don't you just write it down somewhere visible for me to see, like who we need to buy presents for. And if I have any ideas, I'll write it on the list as well. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. Like I felt relieved. But usually I just go and do things like that on my own without asking for help.
Yeah.
I feel resentful that I'm doing it all.
No, that makes so much sense. And I am quite a similar person. It's just that that's how I've grown up and how I've always done things too. Like even if it's not about parenthood, it's just I just feel like I know what needs to be done. I'm just there to do it. And then sometimes I think that listing that your partner recommended, that's actually a really good idea just to, share what you'll, if it's like an event that we're both going to or if it's something that we're both doing and just writing that list. And then if they have ideas, just chip in. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
think like unless you're communicating how you're feeling and what your needs are, sometimes our partner's not going to be able to pick it up and they can't read our mind.
Yeah.
And we just have to get good at asking for help as well, which can be really hard for mums to do.
That kind of is a good segue into one of the questions that our listeners also ask. So it's about, it's a two-part question really. So this is a mom that was asking, she was asking, is our generation less capable than our parents back then? Or are we just too used to doing things for ourselves? You know, how like this generation, a lot of people are really just enjoying their own time. And then once they become that parent, it's a really hard transition. Whereas the generation back then, they do have kids really early, or like they are built to, they know that eventually they'll have a family. So that's the first part. Yeah, I'll let you answer that one first and then I'll continue with the example.
Okay. Like each generation will face its unique advantages and challenges. I think for our generation, we have more access to information and resources, and we've had technological advances as well that make baby care more convenient, such as baby monitors.
There's even like baby rocking electrical
Yeah.
chairs or something. I saw that. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot more that supports parents with parenting and baby care, and there's more flexibility in gender roles and expectations now as well. I think parental leave policies have improved. Online parenting communities and social media have connected parents with others who share similar experiences, and it provides that sense of support and community. And I think like parents want to be parenting more consciously and doing things differently to how they were raised now. But we're also overloaded with information.
Yeah, that's true.
Overwhelming. There's a lot of messaging about how to be a parent in the right way or the wrong way.
Yeah, along with cultural influences as well, I feel like just how it's been passed down. It's like this is how our family did it, and then maybe parents might be like, you need to do that. And that's kind of adding on to all the information that someone might be reading as well.
Yeah, I think it's overloading. But the older generation were parenting during really different times as well.
Yeah, it's true.
And our parents generally less informed and had less resources. They also didn't have the constant feedback or information through the internet and social media to tell them what other parents were doing or not doing. So just very, very different experiences. There's, I think, disadvantages and advantages with our generation.
Yeah, there's a lot of like parent shaming nowadays too. I think that's like the new thing that you probably wouldn't see back in like our parents or grandparents' generation.
Yeah,
But
it's so intensified as well because of social media.
Yeah,
mhm.
that's right.
People can be really brutal online.
I
And our parents didn't
know.
experience that. They just experienced that within their community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gets a
Yeah.
bit toxic, doesn't it?
While we're on the topic of both sides are stepping up and just helping out with working through things and having that balance, the second part question from this listener was to ask, even though, for example, like the husband has gone to work, come back, but they're still stepping up and helping out, even though the balance is better, why is the mum always still struggling? Like, feel like they're still struggling more than the other partner is?
I think, firstly, the physical and the biological changes that mums go through is a lot. The pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum recovery, breastfeeding, like all that falls on the mum, and it brings about significant changes and potential health challenges as well. So they're going into parenthood already with that experience and those changes. The societal and cultural pressures on mothers leaves them constantly feeling worried about what they're doing, how they're doing it, whether they're doing it right. And as we were talking about as well, like that messaging is really clear on the internet and social media as well. And then we talked about the mental load that they carry, the planning, the organisation, and managing various aspects of family life.
So, is there anything that primary parent, maybe exercises that they can do, or even like affirmations or something that they can do to help get themselves out of that feeling of struggle?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about mindset, because if a mum is feeling overwhelmed and she's feeling resentful towards her partner or towards her child, then like her mindset might be around looking at that, or like her frustration might be directed towards her child or her partner. And how she responds to that is going to be how she behaves towards them. Whereas, if you pause and take a moment to ask yourself, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? Often if you're feeling overwhelmed, you might notice that you're not breathing properly. Your breathing's quite shallow. Your heart might be racing. You might have like really tense shoulders. And then if mum can tune into herself and ask herself how she's feeling, then she might have a better understanding of what she needs. Because if she can look at that and say, okay, I think I need a break, maybe I need to ask someone for help.
Yeah.
But definitely affirmations can be helpful as well, whether it's like doing a meditation with affirmations or like just having them on your fridge, letting their partner know that they would like to hear affirmations as well.
Yeah, so like the common theme between that and also sharing the balance, like having better relationship with the partner is just also really understanding yourself first and how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also communicating that too between each other. I think that's a huge thing.
Like if you don't open up, it's going to be hard for anyone
to
know.
understand. Yeah,
so,
100%.
Yeah.
And sometimes like mums don't even know how they're feeling. Like they might be feeling angry or resentful because they see like a dirty pair of socks at the end of the bed and this is after having like a really hard day of mothering, and then they crack the shits at their partner.
Yeah.
And they might not recognize that they're feeling overwhelmed. They might just be thinking that partner's a shitty partner for leaving the socks on the bed and that they don't help out.
Yeah. Speaking from experience.
But I've also been the one to leave the dirty socks as well.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty for that.
Yeah. So like I know we touched on the hardships, but why do you think hardships is never really talked about? Like I understand that I would assume that it's difficult to talk about to self-reflect.
Not to scare other people.
Yeah, not to like scare other people, but why do you think it's not spoken about?
I think it's hard as parents to find space and a supportive place to discuss the challenges in a way that's really raw and honest. I think there's fear of being judged or misunderstood. I've personally felt misunderstood when I've talked to people about my struggles of parenting, and more so people that haven't had children, and it's not their fault. They haven't experienced parenthood.
Yeah.
Like I've felt some shame around complaining about my struggles. Parents don't want to be seen as complaining or being ungrateful for having children or failing at being a parent. But at the same time, it's like, yes, like I've felt that caring for my teething child who's been screaming at me and refusing to do anything I ask them to do all week has completely sucked the life out of me. But yes, I still love her and I still love being a parent, but I'm just having a shitty week.
It's like thinking from that perspective, that day or that week is just, it's hard, just that period, but it will pass.
Mm-hmm. It always passes. Who is this demon child?
Yeah, I've been following these YouTubers and I've watched them for so long that now they are parents and they have like shared those kind of experiences where they have those really bad weeks where either all their kids are sick or they're like all crying and nothing is going right, and then they end up breaking down. And then for me, as someone who isn't a parent, those type of videos really help me see like the real part of being a parent. Also, to me, I feel like it's good for people to just share a bit more of that just for an understanding. And for me, there's no judgment. It's just like, oh wow, this is actually how hard parenting can be, but also how rewarding it can be. And so I feel like it's good. And
yeah, it's really great that people are doing that more and more now, and you're seeing it more on social media.
Yeah, there's like two sides of it, like the parent shaming and then the ones that are really raw and open.
What about you guys? Like, are you guys planning or thinking about having children?
We have never ruled out and be like, no, we don't want kids. It's never been on our minds. But lately we've been talking about it a bit more. Whether or not when that's going to happen, we don't know. But yeah, it's also such a big learning curve for us. And that's why this topic is so interesting to us.
Have you guys ever felt scared about becoming parents based on something that someone has said?
Well, for me personally, being the one that's probably going to be the one that's carrying the baby, I think the scariest part is really just that pregnancy part. I think all the other parts, I feel like we work quite well where what you mentioned, it's like if you feel a certain way, just open it up and then talk to your partner. and be like, hey, I'm feeling this. I just need some support here or something. We do that quite well. So I'm not too worried about that side of things. The main part is really just the pregnancy part just sounds scary to me.
I think because we are quite focused on ourselves in terms of career growth and whatnot. So it's never a no discussion or like something that we just close off. It's always something that we always talk about from time to time. But it's just more so making that transition. I think it's more changing that mindset from focusing on yourself to focusing on starting a family and bringing someone into our lives is
Yeah. And it's in a sense, it's kind of feeling like you're giving up part of your life to start this new, different version of a life. So it's like, and it's such a big unknown, and it will be such a big change, and you don't know how that would go. I think that's also something that it's not really a fear. It's just, it's really a big void of
question
questions.
marks.
Yeah.
Question marks around an experience that you haven't had before.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that something common within like your clients and like something that people would come to you about too?
Yeah, I have some clients that I have worked with who are talking about considering or contemplating having children and not really being sure if that's something that they want, or I guess wanting to better understand what they should be thinking about to prepare themselves for that mindset. Something you said, Amelia, that really resonated was like that experience of losing part of your life or part of your identity. That's a really, really common experience and something I felt myself as well. Like I remember after bringing my daughter home, I think it was like the second day, I just started crying because I was sad for the life that I felt like I lost, like my
Yeah.
past pre-baby life. But it's a really common experience, and like you move through that, and it is a different life. But also, like if career is important to you, or other aspirations or interests, doesn't always mean that you have to completely let those things go. Like it might just mean that it will be on pause for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you personally get yourself over that, you know, that second day where you broke down or you're kind of just grieving that old life that you had? How did you get yourself past that?
Like just accepting that things were how they were at the time, but also acknowledging that the grief was normal, that I was allowed to feel that and that I might feel that again from time to time, which I don't really think I do, but I do miss aspects of like living independently and being
Yeah.
but I think there's so much going on that's distracting you that sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a lot of space to sit in that grief anyway. You just kind of move along.
Yeah, and there's other rewarding things that come out of it too. Like you may have moved on from being an individual, but there's other rewarding things like seeing achievements that your daughter has achieved. It just makes you feel really good, you know, kick the ball or something.
It's like a whole new set of experiences that you get to have for the first time as well. And I guess your priority and your expectations change once having a kid as well. Like when I imagine going on a holiday, I'm excited to take my daughter on that holiday and witnessing her experience all these things for the first time.
Was there ever a moment that you, like during your parenthood, that you felt like you weren't doing good enough? Heaps of people going through that transition are feeling that as soon as they get into that parenthood.
Is it the mum guilt, the parent guilt?
Yeah.
All the time. I don't know, it's like a big fat yes.
But then how did you tackle that? How did you get over those moments? Because obviously it's such a big moment in your life that, you know, it makes you feel a certain way. And then you've got to obviously try and keep positive for your child, but then also for your partner who's on the side with you. How did you, I guess, get over those roadblocks or speed
work
bumps?
with yourself to push through?
Well, I've been in therapy for a long time, so it definitely helps to go and speak to my therapist about how I'm feeling and this feeling of not being good enough, where it comes from, and finding space for self-compassion and being reminded that good enough parenting is good enough, that it doesn't need to be perfect. Just thinking about the strengths is helpful as well, thinking about the things that I was doing right and I was doing well. And despite sometimes not feeling like I was doing enough or not enough as a parent, when I looked at things holistically and understood that my child was fed, that she was safe, that she has a really healthy and safe attachment with her parents, and that she's confident, like those are the things that I have to remind myself that I am doing well.
Would that be the same for, like, say, the partner? So if the mum is having the mum guilt, what about the dad that feels like they might not be doing enough, or like the other parent that might not feel like they're doing enough? Would you say it's kind of the same thought process?
Slightly different because of the societal and cultural expectations on mum. There's a lot more pressure on mums to be a good mum and be the primary caregiver. But in saying that, dads can definitely struggle with not feeling good enough as well. And part of that is to do with their own history and their own experiences in their childhood, because feeling not good enough might be like a common narrative that they've developed from experiences in childhood as well. And so it can be really helpful to explore that by talking about it.
Sure. So just a little bit onto your personal journey, becoming a parent. For you, what was the hardest part so far in becoming a parent?
Where do I start?
All of the above.
Like, it could be something that's physical, could be like a mindset
Mm.
journey, it could be like thoughts that you had.
One of the hardest parts is like having a background of early childhood education and being a counsellor. I had very specific ideas about how to be a parent. So my background in early childhood education and being a counsellor has made me really hyper aware of the importance of creating an environment that promotes a child's sense of agency and independence and confidence. Hyper awareness about the types of experiences and toys or resources that promotes the child's engagement with play holistically. Like, I was just sometimes knowing too much, you're inundated with information and it's overwhelming, and that's something that I really struggled with because my daughter's crying.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Overanalyzed many aspects of parenting and held myself to a really high standard.
Yeah, because you're like in your position, you're always out there to help people and be like, this is what you need to do, this is how you can help them. And now you've got all that knowledge and skill and you've held that there and you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. And then on top of that, just preparing for yourself. And then now you're in that over preparing kind of state.
For sure. Like, having perfectionistic tendencies as well doesn't help. It just compounds like the knowledge that I already have because of my work. And I found myself, especially in the first year when I was a full-time mum, I found myself parenting as if I were in a classroom with my kinder children.
Mm.
So I was like making sure that there were sensory activities for her at the end of the day to help her wind down. I was just like trying to do everything by the book.
Yeah.
Did they help though? Like, just knowing that kind of knowledge and having that sensory and how to help her wind down?
It definitely helped. Like, I think the benefits of having all this knowledge is that I understand her developmental needs. I understand, if she's having a meltdown or she's like losing the plot, that I kind of know what kind of questions to ask myself to sort of like make an assessment of what's going on and what her needs are and how I can support her.
And in terms of your relationship, because after you transition into parenthood, it's all about the child or like the motherhood, the fatherhood, or parenthood. What about your relationship? How did you maintain like a healthy relationship and how did you work through conflicts that might have happened, especially during like this early stage of new parenthood?
A lot of yelling. But really, like, sometimes when our baby was crying, we'd be trying to talk to each other over the top of the crying, raising our voice at each other. And there's this one time that I was like, can you get the Panadol and the thermometer? And I'm holding my crying baby. I'm like, what? And I'm like, can you get the Panadol and the thermometer? And he's like, what? And I'm like, Panadol, thermometer. And he's like, you don't have to yell at me. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, after things like that would happen, we would often debrief with each other. I think talking through things, clarifying what was happening, hearing each other's perspective in that is really important, so that it gives us the opportunity to feel heard and understood. And then sometimes, depending on the context, we would like try and make a plan as well moving forward to try and manage certain situations a bit better.
Was there a certain experience that you could share with us or that plan where you put in place and that helped you build a better relationship?
So, like, sometimes when my partner gets angry with our daughter and he raises his voice, like I'll get triggered, and like sometimes I raise my voice as well. So like I've gotten triggered, and there was this one time where he was bathing her and he was getting really frustrated with her, raising his voice at her. So like I went into the bathroom and I was like, go, I'll take over. And he was like, it's okay, I've got it. And I'm like, no, just go. So then we talked about it later, and he was telling me that he feels like I'm just like refereeing him out, like I'm coming out with a red card.
Okay.
Like, all right, you're out. Anyway, sending him away.
Yeah.
And so we talked about how it was important for him to let him manage certain situations. And if I wanted to come in and take over, that I ask him if he needs that rather than send him away.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I have to really bite my tongue and not take over.
Yeah.
But he does the same for me as well. Like he wouldn't come over and just send me away. He'd ask if I needed help or if I needed to tap out.
What if it's in that position where, you know how sometimes you're like, are you okay? Do you need help? And you can tell that they actually do need help, but they're like, no, I don't need it. When do you know when you're like, you should actually step in and be like, okay, let me help you?
Yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes I'm in that position where like I'm dysregulated and I've got no patience and I'm just making things worse with my daughter. He'll come and say, hey, like I've got this, you can go. And I'll be like, no, I'm fine. I'll deal with this. He'll come back again later and be like, okay, just go take a break. It's fine. I think for me, I don't know in that moment that I need to tap out because I'm like so laser focused and dysregulated that I'm not really thinking clearly.
Yeah.
If the partner can see that, then they might just need to really encourage the other partner to take a break.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like after asking, give them a little chance to actually do it. And then if you can see that they're still struggling, then you'd be like, hey, it's okay. Let me try and help you.
And do it in a way that's really gentle. Like, it's okay. Go take a break. I've got this. Not.
Yeah. Red card.
You're out.
No, that's a good point, because I think when you're in that moment, you're obviously, whether it is frustrated, annoyed, all those sort of feelings, you sort of, like you said, laser focused in that moment, in that zone. You don't really realize what's actually going on. And I think it's really important to really take a step back. And I think if your partner's there sort of hovering and watching, that's a good sort of moment where your partner could say, hey, this is what's happening, relax, or let's handle this together, or something like that.
That kind of brings to the like some of that affirmation thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay, like this situation is fine, we can go through this together, or like I can help you. And just hearing some of that sometimes goes such a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Communication and the words you use is really important.
Yeah, I think it's just hard at the moment because you're so zoned in, you're so focused, so it's a bit hard to put yourself back.
Yeah, it's like when you're in an argument with your partner, and if you're really fired up and angry and trying to explain your point, you can be really committed to your anger or righteousness in your anger that you don't recognize you need to take a time out because you're like, I'm going to commit to this.
Yeah, definitely felt those a few times. In terms of that, like that's a good way of just helping the child involved, but also how do you maintain like a healthy relationship between each other and also like not to lose that spark is what people ask.
Drifting apart is to be expected when you become parents. So I think managing your expectations is really important, but also like looking after ourselves goes a long way. And it can sound counterintuitive to look after yourself, but if you look after yourself, you then have the capacity for your child and your partner as well. So really making time for each other to self-care, like encourage your partner to take time away to do something for themselves, you know, being willing to look after your child or take on some more responsibility so that your partner can go and have a night out with their friends. Also making time to talk to each other is really important, like even when you don't feel like it. I remember some days during that postpartum period where I was neglecting myself, let alone my partner. I didn't really care to ask him how his day was going. But those little things go such a long way, like making eye contact when your partner leaves the house rather than like not acknowledging them leaving or not even paying attention to them. Just having like quick quality time because you don't have a lot of time for each other. like debriefing with each other at the end of the day as well, checking in with each other, asking what they need, if they're okay.
And I think that debriefing thing is really important. And, just going back into when you were saying that you were red carding your husband when he's being frustrated, and then like during the moment it's heated or it's just very intense, but then making that time to just debrief and so that they don't go away misunderstanding what happened, like you were yelling because you really couldn't hear your own voice or they couldn't hear you, and that's really what the reason was, and there was nothing outside of that. Like I wasn't yelling because I was angry. I think those are some really good points that you brought up.
Yeah, it's all in the way that you prepare after a rupture happens. Like conflict, arguments will happen and they're inevitable. But if you can come back together and talk through things and repair, then that's really important. Otherwise, you're just sort of sweeping things under the rug and they're more likely to happen again,
Good
or
point.
going to misunderstand each other and resent each other as well.
Yeah.
I think when you come back together to repair, you're showing each other that you're invested in each other and that you care for each other.
Would you do that debriefing or coming back together? Is that right after the moment when you can actually catch that time together? Or do you kind of schedule in a certain time, be like, hey, let's sit together and talk? Or is there a certain time that you would do this?
Sometimes it might happen right after a rupture. Other times it might happen later in the day or the day after. I don't think we've ever really scheduled in that time, but that can be really helpful for couples if they're time poor. I think we just naturally will debrief with each other at the end of the day once our daughter is down. Like my partner and I tend to talk a lot, so those things will come up. But in saying that, there's been times where like we'll just avoid each other after conflict as well. We don't always get it right.
Yeah. Another question that a listener also asked was, this is more for the parent and the child, how to build a better relationship with your child.
How to build a better relationship with your child.
Yeah, like through all the drama, through all the stress, like how do you build, like, I guess, create that bond with your child?
It's like the oxygen mask on an aeroplane concept. You have to put your mask on first before helping others. So if you look after yourself, you'll create a more stable and loving environment for your child to thrive. And I think invest in time in understanding yourself and how your family of origin experiences might impact your relationship with your child. For example, if you grew up with parents that were dismissive or punished you when you expressed distress or anger, then as the parent, you might have a difficult time holding space for your child's vulnerability. You might tell them to stop crying, or like you might punish them when they're distressed. And then if you repeat the same pattern with your child, you're going to impede on your connection with your child. So I think it's really important to do the work on yourself. And like some really, really great parenting books are out there as well to like help you understand how to build a solid, strong relationship with your child and how to have an emotionally supportive relationship with them.
Just another question that we had that leads on from that is more about the feelings. So as both parents transition into parenthood, feelings between each other change. That's natural as
you mentioned, you kind of drift apart and you change, like the feelings change a little, but how do you work through that?
Yeah.
Aside from like the communication and talking through that, like that feeling of distant is still there. How would you work through that?
Making time for each other to nurture the relationship, because whilst one parent might be doing a lot more of the parenting or the other parent might be working and providing that financial security, those things are still doing things for the family, but those things are not nurturing the relationship between the couple. So really making an effort to spend time together, whether it's having a date night, watching a movie together, spending quality time, like aside from communicating with each other, the way in which you communicate with each other as well, like it's really important to be mindful of, because I think like how you deal with the stress of having a baby as a couple will impact the relationship in the long term. And if you like start developing these unhealthy patterns of engaging with each other or communicating with each other, like that has long-term effects that leads to resentment and contempt and disrespect. and not really feeling like you're each other's support person.
Is there any other things that they could do differently, especially in the earlier stages? Because I know you said like having time for date nights and stuff, but a lot of friends and even like peers that we have, it's like that very early stage you don't have that time. So what can they do in just that maybe the first 3 months? Like what can they do for each other in terms of scheduling time or just connecting
Yeah,
again?
I think when you're so limited with time during those postpartum months, you're aiming for like quick quality connection. So even if it means like there's 5 minutes in your day where you're just having a conversation, totally just like uninterrupted time as well, like not being on the phone when you're talking to each other. Showing gratitude goes such a long way as well. That could be sending a text, just saying it to your partner, or leaving sticky notes on the fridge. And it can be just thanking your partner for helping to change a nappy or helping with bath time.
Yeah, just like a little bit goes a long way.
It's the little things, yeah, like just
Yeah.
the eye contact, the physical affection. But I know
Mm,
that those things are so much easier said than done when you're in the thick of parenthood. Like you might
yeah.
not necessarily feel like doing those things.
Like even a quick hug. Like I've heard things like especially from the mom that just gave birth, like they're not feeling good about themselves. Their bodies change so much. Even like a hug, they don't want a hug. So it's kinda like hard even if the other partner was like, yeah, let me give you a hug, but you're like, ew, don't touch me.
Yeah. I think with that, the other partner really needs to respect their partner's boundaries at the time, or like show some curiosity for why the partner's feeling that way and support
Mm.
them with that so their partner feels heard. But yeah, intimacy is like a thing that just gets pushed out the window for a lot of couples.
Yeah. If you're really struggling between like yourself or you and your partner, when's a good time or like a cue that would let you know that you should probably reach out to someone, and who are some key people that they could reach out to?
Some of the signs is, I guess, if you're not getting along, if you're arguing a lot, if you're not feeling connected, if you feel like you need to work on your communication. I think some of the resources, there's a lot online. So Panda, they have, I think, a 24-hour helpline and heaps of resources on their website, as well as courses that parents can look into. Gigit Foundation, of other ones. Mums Matter. So Mums Matter provide free counselling for mums. Centre of Perinatal Excellence, Relationships Australia. Not only do they offer low-cost counselling, but they also provide free programs for parents.
Ah, cool.
Parenting programs focused on parenting and relationship with child, as well as programs for parents and building on their relationship. Dad Space as well is a good one for dads.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then there's, therapy with a counsellor or a psychologist as well. Yeah, there's heaps of resources.
Yeah, what we might do is we might grab those links and we'll put it in the description as well. So
Yeah, so that people
can go directly to it. But coming to the end of the episode,
Mhm.
I just wanted to ask you, Jackie, what are the top 3 tips that you can provide to parents that are obviously making this transition now?
Yeah, it could be tips for like mindset, mental clarity, anything like physical things, like something that they could buy or
Yeah.
resources, anything.
Understanding 3 might be a little bit too little, but
Rapid fire, quick.
Yeah, try not to overthink it. I guess one that I've mentioned a few times in our chat is looking after yourself. That just goes a long way. You need to look after yourself to be able to look after your family. So make sure that you make time for that. Even if you feel guilty about going to get a massage or going out with your friends, just do it anyway. Prioritize your relationship and keep working on it, and reach out for help. Know that you're not alone, and that you'll find that your experiences as a parent is often universal, and that when you talk to people about it, you'll realize that you're not alone, and that don't be afraid to seek therapy as well. I think, like, when you think about going to the gym, you don't have to be really, really unhealthy or overweight to go to the gym. You can be going to the gym because you want to improve your physical health and your fitness and to have a better mindset. And it's the same with going to counselling. although there's a lot of stigma around it, your relationship doesn't need to be falling apart when you go to therapy. I think that's why I found it hard to answer the question before when you said, what are the signs to look out for to know that you need help? Because I think if you just want to go and work on your relationship, understand what your blind spots are.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It doesn't need to be that your relationship is absolutely crumbling.
Yeah, no, that's a really
good
good
one.
analogy. I love that you use that gym example because that is so true. And we're gym junkies, so we can totally relate to that. We're not, you don't have to be unhealthy to go in and start working on yourself, building a better body for yourself. And I really love that, the first thing that you brought up for your tip is actually working on yourself, because a lot of people don't think about that. They're thinking for the other person or other things. And it really does stem back into how you're treating yourself.
I think that's the number one important thing, is to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jackie. You've provided a lot of information. I'm sure we've only just brushed a little bit of specifically in this topic.
Yeah, it's so hard to squeeze into an hour, but
there's like so much to talk about and more to say about that. But I think we did well.
Yeah. But just before we end this, did you want to share any links or places where people can find you?
So there's my website, www.morroweendeavour.com.au. I'm also on Instagram, so I share a lot of content around the things that I'm interested in terms of supporting people with their mental health. I'm on TikTok.
Cool.
Morrow Endeavour as well. But if someone is interested in engaging in individual, couples or family therapy, then they can find me on my website and make a booking for a 15-minute free consultation to just get a bit of a feel of me and see if I might be able to support them. And I also run the Transition to Parenthood workshops as well. I've run a few of those, but I don't have a new date for them just yet. But yeah, I think the workshop is great for expectant parents or couples that are considering having children. In my workshop, I'll, equip parents with knowledge and tools that will help them to build a solid foundation for their relationship, and just talk with them about the things that they can prepare for and anticipate in becoming parents, and just drawing from, theories and research from relationship experts to have a better understanding of what it takes to sustain a healthy relationship, and also looking at the things that they are doing that are likely to contribute to the breakdown of their relationship.
Yeah,
That's
stay
awesome.
tuned, guys, and follow her on Instagram, follow her website.
Thank you. It was really nice to speak with you guys.
No, it was really good.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and sharing your whole knowledge. I'm sure our listeners would learn a lot from that. And yeah, look, we'll put all your information in our description, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Peace.